Bam.
This is Bryan Fuller, and you are watching the Break It Down show.
Yes. I'm trying to get this. I'm trying to go on Instagram more, Bryan, and it requires me to do other steps that aren't automated, and it trips me up sometimes. We are now live on Instagram, everybody. Hopefully, I'll remember to turn the feed off. But I have known Bryan for just about 30 years. It's amazing, man. We have known each other a lifetime. And
25 years old. This was
well, I mean, it's next year. It's 30.
Next winter. Yep.
So 30 years ago, if we weren't both at AIT or basic training, we were about to be. Let's see. I was 30 years ago.
You were about 6 months or 8 months ahead of me, I think.
Something like that. Yeah. Let's see. 2024, 521. Yeah. So I was at basic training right now because I started on April Fool's Day and then graduated just before Thanksgiving of 1994.
I started September 1st, 1994.
Okay. So we had a little bit of overlap at Huachuca, and then I caught up, or you caught up with me in Germany a few months later.
I was actually telling my Germany story to someone the other day, and there was 40 of us that graduated, and there was 3 of us, me, Gage, and I can't remember the other guy, the one who went to the FBI. And the drill sergeant all called us in. He goes, "Start doing push-ups." And I'm like, "Yes, drill sergeant, we're doing the push-ups." He's like, "You know why you're doing push-ups?" I'm like, "No idea." Because you were the only 3 guys that got selected to go to Germany. And we're like, "Woohoo!" I was like, "Okay, let's do push-ups, no problem."
Yeah. That's great. I love it. Do I have any funny stories from Germany or about to go to Germany? There's a million of them. Most of them were just us being rowdy and off. We were in a lucky position where we already had degrees. We had enough money for how we were living so that almost all of our money was discretionary. And it wasn't a lot of money, but when all of your money is gravy, you can go out and get a little crazy. And we weren't like buying Rolexes or none of that kind of stuff, but it was pretty good living.
I wish we did. I still see stories of Antique Roadshow guys that went to Vietnam, bought a Rolex. There's one guy, he bought a Rolex, never used it, put it in a box. The guy's like, "It's brand new still. It's worth $750,000, by the way." And the guy's like,
"Wow."
$300 investment.
Hey, if you could grab us too, back in 1995, before the Bosnia deployment stuff kicked off. So we're pretty motivated dudes, right? Overall, I wouldn't say I was a great soldier, but I did a lot of great soldierly things, right? I'm not a very good veteran either. I don't wear like a grunt style T-shirt.
Oh, Pete, you were a way above average soldier. The only thing you weren't a good soldier about was you did not want to follow orders because the orders were asinine. But PT, you regularly scored 290 or above. You always did extra work on the side, try to get more points for promotion. I mean, you were great. Your uniform always looked pretty good, except for you didn't want it to look good because you were being rambunctious. But you took everything super seriously. Even when we scrubbed the damn Potbelly stoves, we always did a good job. No, you were great, Pete. There was a lot of shitty soldiers we were with. You were not one of them. You were just not one that loved to be dumped on for idiot reasons. Had you been a different commander, other than fucking Norwood, you would have been a great soldier. Absolutely. But I think I stay corrected on that one. You should stay corrected on that one because you were an excellent soldier.
Well, then if I was, you were too. I mean, we were doing things that were.
I was really just working towards a compliment for myself.
Yeah, right. No, absolutely. And I'm only saying that because you paid me a compliment, right? No, but legitimately, among the things we were told we wouldn't be able to do was go to Nijmegen because no one had done that. We were told that we couldn't have a softball team, but a couple of E4s built a softball team. We played softball. And these are minor things, but these are unit level minor things that E4s were doing. And it was a weird unit in that we had a lot of different job capacity that was required of us, but nobody seemed to know how to put us together. And we're going to get to why we're talking here in a second, but I do want to, because I am going somewhere with this. There also wasn't the ability to recognize and develop talent, extreme talent, motivated people. It was just sort of this machine that kind of just did what it did. And to our leaders' credit, we didn't know if we'd even have a unit in 2 years.
Yeah.
What do you make of that?
You know, I think the strongest part of our unit was, and I'm loath to say it because it was some terrible ones, was the strength of our warrant officers. And they're the only ones that sort of push sort of training and like trying to advance soldiers in sort of like an intellectual sort of way, because they had been around for so long. Our officer corps, there was a several officers I liked. Largely was just checking a box, and sadly our NCO corps was just wanted to make the officers happy. So there was no sense of like unit cohesion, and we were. How could you be loyal to the NCOs when like you knew it was ridiculous? It still made us do it anyway. You know, and there was no loyalty to the officers because largely some of the officers were the dumbest people in the unit, and like it wasn't even like it was like a little more than obvious. It was a little bit of head scratcher. They were the most or the least disciplined soldiers in our unit. You know, I tell the story about Norwood all the time. You know, like assigning us broken weapons so he could like get points. You know, like say that they brought stuff to the. You know, they were just endangering our lives. You know, casual stuff. You know, no big deal. You know. You know, overloading us with crap that we didn't need to do, you know, because their information. So, you know, like we would bring all these potbelly stoves down there. We all had to clean them and everything like that. To find out this, we'd never used them even one day. Not even in a rain collection bucket, you know, because they didn't bother to like do 10 seconds of research and say, you know, we're going to have actual, you know, kerosene lanterns or kerosene stoves. So, yeah, there were so many things like that. You know, it's just, you know, it's hard for me to take them seriously.
When we were deployed to Bosnia, among the things that happened to either of us or both of us was I had a no pay due problem. So for the audience, I wasn't getting paid. And I said, hey, what's going on? Because I don't know. And again, I'm an E4. There's not an NCO fixing this. There's not an officer fixing this. Pete is fixing this from another country over a TAC phone. What? Huh? And only because my landlord was a German guy who worked on the American base could I call that guy and say, it's a payday problem. It's not me. I've got to fix this thing. And what the problem was is the Army, for whatever reason, thought that I was a divorced Mexican lady. And I'm like, well, I'm none of these things. And can you prove you're not divorced? I'm like, how do you prove a negative with that? I've never been married, you know, and I'm definitely not a woman, and I'm definitely not Mexican. So I put in an IG complaint. This is all when we were deployed. And I got the IG response back, and they're like, we don't find any problem here. I wasn't getting paid for like 3 months.
Right.
And where was the sergeant major? Where was the first sergeant? Right. And so these kind of things happen. And I remember Paul Norwood, this deployment will not curtail careers.
Yeah.
You took enough of that. And you said, hey, me and Pete are going to go run around for, I think it was less than 96 hours, if everything worked according to plan. But we are going to go out. We don't even have soft caps because we were told not to bring them. So we only have helmets. We're going to run around in our damn helmets in Germany to go to all of these appointments so we can do the administrative things so we can apply for OCS.
Correct.
Rejected. People went home for all kinds of reasons. I had a pass, couldn't use that. Oh, well, just because you have a pass doesn't mean you get to use it, Specialist Turner. And I had to look these people square in the eye and be like, I can't take you seriously. I'm over here working as hard as I know how. And the only time I got promoted was when I started doing the least amount of work I'd ever done in the Army, right? So that's kind of my experience. And I wanted you to talk a little bit about this. And then I swear we're going to transition because I'm building something here.
So I remember my second deployment, they told me I was going to be with who's that European group that was Intel? It was AMIB.
Oh, AMIB, yeah.
And so they sent me an email saying you're going to be with AMIB. You're going to be our first guy deployed from Fort Bragg. And I said, okay, I'll go attach to AMIB. I showed up there. I went to visit AMIB, and they're like, no, we don't have any record of you guys. You're supposed to be here. And then I go back to like this. The first AD was there from Fort one Texas there, Fort Hood. And I said, Sergeant Major, I'm supposed to be with AMIB. No, you're going to be with us. I said, well, I was told I'd be with AMIB. I called back, and to my credit, my unit was like, well, we really thought you were supposed to be with AMIB. But this went on. I hung out for 2 weeks, and all I did was piss off Fort Hood because I wouldn't sign with them. I wouldn't get there and to dotted line and be like, I'm part of your unit now. And I remember I'm getting to a point here. And I remember the sergeant major just hated me. Finally, I signed. He goes, "Oh no, I got you." And I'm like, he's like, "You're gonna work night shift in ops." And I said, "All right." So my night shift it was like a 14-hour day. Like I would start at 6 a.m. or something I'd start at 6 p.m. I go to 6 a.m. and then I would then I could have 2 hours to do PT and eat, right? And I worked my tail off, and the sergeant major just hated me. But we put together all these briefing books. I took all the data because nobody was doing anything during the day, nothing. And they gave me a team of 2 guys. I was an NCO, and we worked all night long putting together briefing books. So anything we did on the link diagram charts, stuff like that, put it all together, briefing books. And I had stacks and stacks and stacks of books. And he's like, "Boy, you've been working really hard here, haven't you?" He's like, "Maybe we should send you out to the field." And so at least I guess my point is to say there was times when I was taken care of for working hard. But yeah, so that was a kind of long story to get to that. But they started sending me out to the field with Harrington and Ward Officer shooting at one dot there, I can't remember his name. And
Zach?
Harrington, what?
Chief Zach?
No, I can't remember who Harrington's with. And they were total alcoholics, the 2 of them. They were drunk all the time. And I was trying to they had sources and stuff they developed, but they were just getting shit-faced on the economy. That was their whole job, was just get shit-faced.
Yeah.
They weren't writing any reports or like that. And the first sergeant came to me was like, how's it going? I'm like, it's fine. I'm just working my way in, just trying to get involved, And we finally had it out because I was like, guys, all you're doing is getting shit-faced all the time. And they were like, we don't want you in our unit anymore. And so they sent me to ops in the field office. So I don't know. Pete, I don't have a good answer for you. I mean, as far as when you work hard, they get taken care of. When you don't work hard,
yeah.
So
I guess, and I want to go back to my original question I wanted to ask. What would you tell us, the 24, 25-year-old us, if you saw both of us in Germany, hey, I'm you from the future? What would you tell us, and would we believe it?
I would say get out of Intel and go do special operations. We were both super fit that then. Special forces, love Intel guys. Would have been a million times better career for us. We were stuck. The Army had no real job for us, but they still had a mission. And we're pretending to do counterintelligence, but there's no counterintelligence threat anymore. So we're kind of doing a little counterterrorism, but we're not going to get trained in counterterrorism. And we're not going to actually do counterterrorism. So it was nobody really knew what to do with us. I remember we had an argument once. We're hey, we're not supposed to do guard duty because, we're supposed to, leave the base and something. And the commander there was nah, just go on guard duty. I was all right. son. I'm going on guard duty. Like nobody really knew what to do with us. So
Yeah.
I would have told myself, it was fun training. Get out of there. Go just do special forces.
It seems to me when you look back at your career by career, what we've done, we weren't built to be corporate guys. We weren't built to be big Army guys, kind of along the lines of what you're saying. I learned how to become a great spy by going out and really inventing my own job and learning how to explain to the command what I could do,
right,
and not offering them what I didn't do. Just saying, like, I will go out every day. I'll write reports. I'll sit in your meetings. I'll give you all of these things that are all designed to advance your mission. And I got more and more freedom. I got better and better at my job. But I could never have done that within the Army. I worked in, with, and for the Army, right? And they let me go all 3 times. Like, good enough. See you later, Pete. But I worked my ass. I'm a really fucking good field collector. Maybe about the best person anybody could ever meet with all my combat time. You've done something similar, but on the civilian side, you've gone out and you've built this business, and you didn't need a corporate backing or everything. You went and got your bona fides through other things, but you've built something amazing here, man. And you're now doing things that it's impossible. It's impossible to start a little small business by yourself like what you did, And it took you a couple of times to get everything all dialed in with all the things you've done over the last 30 years. But here you are about to do something that no one in the history of humankind has ever done. At least not that we have recorded anywhere. And I doubt anyone else is fool enough to do this thing. So I think this is all part of our path. Was we had to get chapped a whole lot in the Army and be like, look, we're thoroughbreds and we want to go do things, but we can't do them here. And I don't need anybody else. I don't need anybody telling me how to start a softball team. Let's went out and did it. Everybody else gets to put an excellent block on their leadership, section of their evaluation because they did such a great job with me. No one had to tell me to go in front of boards. I had to tell my NCOs, I'm going to go in front of boards. I've set up my mock boards. I'm going to do all of your job for you, right? We did things like this partly because we saw a bigger thing for ourselves. We held ourselves to a higher standard.
For me, Pete, I don't know if my motivation tracks the same as your motivation. I think it probably does. I just, I want to experience life, like do everything I can possibly do. And our motivation for trying to go to OCS while we're in Bosnia, or trying to get as many points as we can to get promoted. It's all about not leaving any stone unturned.
Right.
You just want to do as much as you can, as fast as you can.
Right.
And you and I are both in our mid-50s now, and father time is running out the clock on us. And I'm about to take on this little trip of mine. I don't know how many more little trips I could possibly take in my lifetime. This might be the last one. Maybe there's another one, but maybe this might be the last one. And I have to kind of accept that, you want to do as much as you can do in your life. And I think you and I are 100% in agreement on that. And I think we've always had the same sort of motivation in that.
Yeah. And it's, to use a modern military term, by, with, and through. And by through, I mean over the top of you if I have to, right? And that's kind of how I approach my military career. Not on purpose, just because I like to play hard. And when I saw some of our peers getting promoted, getting accolades when we went to field offices, I'm like, I can destroy that dude, Yeah. And I would apparently wear that on my face because I hear later on they're like, oh yeah, you were motivated. Maybe probably the best way to say it. And
you were in the one place where nobody wanted anybody with motivation, though.
Right. Yeah. And we were trapped there, right? But if we had gone to the field office, we still would have outperformed our peers.
Oh, I don't deny that. But what I'm saying is the stars in ops were the least motivated soldiers because they fit in perfectly. And we know all their names, but we don't have to say them here. It's fine.
Yeah. So. I guess this lays us into this thing where you don't get to row across the Atlantic Ocean from Boston to London unless you've gone through these things and you've tested yourself and you found out that you do have to do things that are abnormal and hard. You love to do hard stuff. You'd love to hand carve wood bowls. It's easier just to go to, Cost Plus Imports or Pier 1 and buy a wooden bowl, but you're like, no, I'm going to take this piece of wood and I'm going to gently carve it and sand it and carve it and sand it and carve it and sand it. Not just going to raise a bunny rabbit. You're going to put it all on the internet so everybody can see your cute little bunny rabbit. You definitely go to the nth degree to really push yourself to not just do the task, but to do it in your own unique, very organic way. Yeah, you've rowed across the Atlantic Ocean once before and then said you would never do it again. But you're like, I'm not going to do that again. I'm going to go the other direction that nobody has ever done, right? That comes from those two dudes that lived in Germany in the mid 90s who were, stallions.
So I want to correct you. There is 41 people that have attempted to row from somewhere on the East Coast to somewhere in Europe. About 70% of them were successful, maybe a little less. There was a team from New York that went to Ireland, I think, last year. There was a team from Newfoundland that went to London, possibly. That being said, no one's actually going from Boston.
No one's going from Boston.
And we're really hoping to set the record. We're if we make landfall, we're automatically in Guinness because we're the only co-ed team to ever do it. But like I was telling my teammate about this earlier, and then she said, I was like, oh, you could be, the only co-ed team to do it in Guinness. I said, or you could be the best team to do it. And she's like,
yeah.
I don't even want to talk about this. And like, she's so, because so when we go across, there's a set of islands called the Scilly Islands. They're off the coast of England, the kind of south of Ireland.
Yep.
And they think of it as like the Martha's Vineyard kind of thing. And it's a series of like 5 or 6 small islands. And there's actually some pretty hefty currents that run through the islands. But if we're close to the record, we'll stop at the islands and try to land the record. But if we're not close to the record, we're going to avoid the islands because they're kind of dangerous to go through. And then we'll actually go to right to England directly.
And could you make it to England without hitting the islands and still break the record?
Yeah, we just go south of them. So like there's just a picture of a bunch of islands with a bunch of swirling, currents.
Right.
So it's not the most navigable in a rowboat. It is possible to do, but like I said, it's somewhat dangerous. But if we're close to the record, we'll go hit them. But if we're not, we're going to go around them and settle for the record for the co-ed team and get in the Guinness. So I'll be able to notch that one more thing on my little history book. As I will wind up in the Guinness Book of World Records.
Yeah. You've got 4 people on the team. This is for everybody who hasn't been to the website. By the way, down below is the website. Just go to londoncallingrow.com or just type in London Calling Row and you'll see all the different social media places and everything else. But that's the best place to go. That's the main place if you want to contribute, if you want to get on the newsletter, if you want to in any way support Bryan and the crew, that's where you go. And this is cool because you have people that can row. And they have to go out and do this. And we all in the big world don't understand what it takes. Is there much of a difference between male ability and female ability in these things? Is it common for co-ed teams to happen?
We have one of the females on our team. Her name's Elizabeth. Like she's one of the top rowers in the world, men or women. Is in general, the men are generally a little bit faster, but she's pretty exceptional. Sure. Men are generally a little bit faster. I mean, it bears out in like the history books of teams that have crossed the Atlantic. The male teams are generally top times are low 30s. The female teams are low 40s. But that being said, I feel very confident in the women that are on our team. They're both incredible athletes, and they have a tremendous amount of courage and determination. I'm not worried about that at all. I mean, I'm a pretty big guy. I'm going to pull a lot of water. The goal is the record, I believe, stands at 3.13 knots. We were out the other day, and I was rowing for all four of us. So just the three of them were watching me, and I was able to row 3.13 knots for the whole boat. When Clara jumps in, she's the one rowing with me, we would get over 4 knots. And that's well above the record. But that being said, it was a small sample of water. So there could be times when we're fighting a current or wind, but there could be times when we're not fighting a current and wind. We're very hopeful that we're going to be catching a good part of the Gulf Stream and maybe even get significantly higher. The Gulf Stream could add up to 3 knots. So we could potentially have 100 mile days, which would be just amazing. I mean, that's like flying along. So
you guys leave in just a little more than 10 days.
Yeah, 10 days in wake up really is what it is.
Yeah, 10 days in a wake up, right?
Wake up. It's coming right upon us. We were actually out of the water today. I took a couple. We had a couple issues with the boat. I was trying to resolve, check out, and I checked them out today, and they were resolved. We were able to fix them. So I took a team of people that I'm not rowing across the Atlantic with out onto the ocean, just across Boston Harbor and stuff. And we wind up being the biggest curiosity on the water. Everybody's like, "Whoa, what's that?" Well, I've never seen anything like that before. And we parked next to Tom Brady's $10 million yacht, and people are like, "What's that yellow boat?" So that's a lot of fun, and it's just fun to go around Boston Harbor. Honestly, I wish I could have the boat here. I wish I wasn't riding it to London. Have the whole summer just to take people out in the boat because it's just so much fun. We go right along the river, right along the waterways, and we go all around the harbor, and it's really good fun. Yeah.
If things go medium well, right? Nothing bad, nothing great, just straight rowing, and you leave on the 1st of June, when do you hit London?
My best guess, London. My best guess, England in 40 days. So July 10th, maybe 11th, we would hit England. Going along the coast, so we would then have to navigate the southern coast of England, which has notoriously high tides. So if you look at England, it's sort of shaped like a bunch of U's connected to each other. It's like a saw, like a saw mouth, and there's a dip, which would be like a bay that comes out to a point, like a tooth, and there's another bay, there's a tooth, another bay. Well, every time we get one of those teeth, we can't row around the teeth or the tooth unless the tide's going out. The tide's going in, we have to just park it. So we're gonna be depending on our people on shore to help us be. So if we're going across the bay, let's say 3 knots, right? But we're gonna end or tide coming in. We might want to slow down or speed up to try to catch a tide going out, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense. Yeah,
and we don't have to park it in, and just wait for tide to turn. Last thing I want to do is deploy the anchor, because this boat is not designed. We have an anchor. It's 100% not designed to actually use the anchor.
Right.
You'd just be tying it to a cleat, and there's no way to pull it up. It's 100% a risk. It'll be the biggest risk we have, deploying the anchor, and The boat would just be all over the place. Yeah, so it's not a good thing at all.
And then you don't go down the East Coast. You come around the southern tip. I guess maybe it's harder to go the other way or longer, or what's the deal with that?
So we would be coming from west to east. So we go across the southern part of England. I mean, if you go all around England, it's another 1,000 miles. So you definitely don't want to do that because you have to go all around Scotland. The whole thing is gigantic. So we go down southern England, and we have to come up through the little strait between England and France.
Right.
And then we would then have to go up the Thames. The Thames is a huge tidal pull too. So no matter what we're going to do, wait for the tide to turn and then go up the Thames. But once we get part of the way up the Thames and the tide turns, we can actually tie off somewhere in the Thames, and that would be pretty safe. We have we have some bumpers we can put on the boat so we can tie off on like a dock or something like that, and then wait for the tide to turn again, and then we go all the way back up.
This is Bryan Fuller. He's going to row. Him and his team are going to row from Boston ultimately to London, and that's where we're talking. It's going to take them 35 to 45 days, give or take, and they're hoping to set a record. It's pretty incredible. No team has ever done this from Boston to London. I think that's right? You said that's East Coast to their West Coast, but this is a different thing. Why?
Oh,
especially after saying, "I'll never do this again."
I trust you not to use my words against me. When I originally wrote this, it was because.
By the way, I never believed you when you said it the first time. So
well, that's good. I didn't lie. So when I originally wrote this about 13 years ago now, I wrote it in support of the veteran rowing program that I was part of. It was a brand new program. I thought it was tremendous how it treated people with PTSD, and it was just an eye opener for me. Being around other veterans, it was a game changer. I mean, it literally changed my life. I quit my job as an accountant, opened up an indoor rowing studio, the first of its kind in all of New England. It was only the 12th in the whole country at the time. Now there's a couple hundred. They're all over the place now. I think it's largely because of me. Probably largely because of me. But so I wanted to support that program. Well, the program has kind of fallen on lean times again. And I thought, I have the capacity in my work to take the time off to do something like this. I was fortunate enough to find a crew that's amazing. I got sold a boat at a really relatively good price. And we've had a tremendous outpouring from our community as far as sponsorship goes to make this all possible. It just everything came together. And my goal is once again is to raise money for that same program that taught me how to row. Like I said, every once in a while, everything, the stars align, and you're just like, okay, it's going to happen again. And it just takes the willpower to say, okay, I'm going to do it again. And then once you commit to it, you kind of, there's no place to go. You have to follow through. You can't eat half of a snake. You have to eat the whole snake. So that's sort of just. It started about 1.5 years ago as just a talk. A friend of mine wanted to do this with me, and we just kind of everything kind of came together, and here we are.
How hard is this thing day to day, shift to shift?
It's not easy. I'm not going to lie to you, but after about 7 or 8 days of it, you really fall into a rhythm, and it's not that bad. It actually becomes kind of, I'd say, after about 10 or 15 days, it actually becomes quite enjoyable. You really learn how to get in and out of the cabin. Super easy. You fly in and out of it. You learn how to make meals. You learn how to keep yourself clean. You're taking long, breaks, sleeping. You're recording stuff for people back home, and then in between time you're rowing. And the toughest part of rowing is just is dealing with blisters and chafe. You know, the shifts are long, but like, you know, that's what books and tape are for. You know, and the crew, you know, tries to elevate itself with other crew members. You know, we're doing this, we got it. You know, but like I said, the really tough part is like, you know, there's. I don't want to equate it to prison because that's just a terrible equation. But like, there's only like prisoners always say there's only 2 days in prison, the first day and the last day, and like, this is sort of the same thing in that first day or two you're like, oh my god, I don't know what I'm gonna do. My shift is another 3 hours, and like I'm already exhausted and tired, and like I'm hungry, and like I'm cold, and like they have a 4-hour shift. You're like already like you're filling your head with self-doubt. The thing that you have to like realize though is like the boat's not turning around.
Right. Here we are.
You're like, you signed up for this. There's like a little sign on the boat that said you paid for this, and like you have to do it. Like you're not going back the other way. You have to you have to go. So you've got to do your shift, and like the crew's depending on you. All the other 3 members are depending on you to do your thing, and so there's no place for you to go, and you can be all sad in your pants for a little while, but after a while you kind of, it's okay. So I guess what I'm trying to say is like, if you make it through the first 3 days, you can make it through anything. You can make it through 100 days. And it's not that bad.
Would you be more fit or more broken when you're done? Just again, medium row.
Oh, 100% more broken. 1,000% more broken. Oh my god. Yeah, no, I had trouble standing. Like I could barely do a sit up. Like, you know, everything is sore. Like you've lost an enormous amount of muscle mass. I really fattened up. I marbled up nice for this one. So I'm about 300 pounds right now. Now, don't get me wrong. Like, I'm not a little frail 300 chubby pounds.
No, you're not.
No. But that being said, like, I'll lose 50 of it. And I'm going to be in good shape then. Like last time, I lost 40-something pounds, but I started at 270. So it was like a bigger shock to the system. So like my ideal weight's really around 260. So I'll just be a little under my ideal weight when I get back, I figure. But like, there's people that can't work out for weeks, even months afterwards. Trouble doing sit-ups, even trouble standing, honestly, because none of those muscles get used when you're on the boat. Standing muscles, they all atrophy. It's a big problem.
Yeah, and it's sort of like swimming, where if you're going to do a long swim, you need to have fat to burn. Otherwise, you start burning muscle and capacity to do the job. At least I'm assuming. So when you're out there, what's that?
That's a totally fair statement.
Yeah. And then how is the food? I mean, obviously, like MREs don't taste that bad anymore. You know, you warm them up and you're like, it's good enough. I mean, is that what you guys are going to be doing? Or
we have fancy MREs. So like, it's like curry pad thai and like, quinoa and chicken, like this is pretty fancy little meals. They're fine. And honestly, by the time you sit down and eat one, you're like, oh God, it tastes great. And like, this is really where I'm like, oh my God, this is so terrible. Some of them might have too much salt in it or something like that. And you're just like, oh. But for the most part, they're all pretty solid B minuses. I do have a funny story. So the guy that's helping us manage our trip from land, he's helping us with weather and stuff. There's his name's Chris, and he and his friend rode from Tokyo to San Francisco. Phew. 189 days. And they brought everything with them. Now, here's the problem, okay? So they had major loss of food due to ocean. It, like, seeped in through all the food and, like, ruined a huge portion, like 30% of their food, right? Oh, no. So they got within 130 miles of San Francisco, and not a stick of food was left in the boat. And they had been starving themselves, rationing food for months, and they were all just raked thin. And like, they at this point, they were not sure they could do it. And if they did do it, they'd be hospitalized as soon as they landed. And they called up the Coast Guard, who made a couple phone calls, and they got a hold of a Vietnam vet who did flyovers for the vineyards. And he's like, I'll take care of them. He blew them out a huge satchel of food and dumped on them, and they pulled it in. And there was a huge bags of McDonald's hamburgers and beer and French fries. And there's a picture of Chris eating a Big Mac. And he said, to this day, it was the greatest meal I ever had in my life. Yeah. And like a cold Big Mac. And he's like, oh my God, I can't. And like, I just want to liken that to like, you know, you're out in the ocean and you're tired, and like you're wet, and someone hands you a hot meal of smoked pork and beans, and you're like, oh my God, it tastes so good.
Yeah. Yeah. Legitimately, one of the best meals of my life. We were doing an op in Bosnia, and we went to a farm. So we were going to have a pig roast, and the vets from the army, the veterans, veterinarians from the army. Yep. Yeah, they went out. We slaughtered the pigs. Watched the farmers do it. The farmers took one of the livers out of a pig, put it on coals in like a green egg kind of a cooking situation.
Yep.
Made some fresh bread on top of that heat, and handed me an ice cold beer. And then I ate liver, bread, and beer. And that was the meal, and it was one of the most wonderful tasting, because you know you're out every day eating MREs nonstop for just months, and or MKT meals. MKT, everybody, it's like a more portable kitchen with a step above an MRE, but still like just the same green scrambled eggs, and not green because they're colored, green because that's the color, or lasagna or whatever it was, right? And so to this day, one of my very favorite meals. I don't know that I would order, you know, pig liver in a restaurant, but man, oh man, it was delicious when I had that.
Yeah, I had a similar experience in Bosnia. Where they took for Christmas. It was a little piglet, and they spent like 13 hours rolling this thing over bowls. Like this one poor guy was just doing it. Like, it had to have been the whole day. And then when we get done, we had a loaf of bread, and I've never seen a loaf of bread this big in my life. It was about 2 feet across, and the loaf of bread must have weighed 30 pounds. And all we had was pig, bread, cabbage, the pickled cabbage, and beer, and that was it. And like I would just take a piece of bread, the pickled cabbage, and then a piece of pig, and make a little sandwich out of it. And this went on for like 3 hours. We ate the F out of this pig. And
absolutely.
I was like, I don't think I've had anything better tasting in my life.
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about the hazards, because obviously this thing is at its worst, it's lethal, right? And
what do you mean lethal?
Well, like you know, if all things break loose and crazy, right? This is not a gentle endeavor, and so anything goes wrong, you know.
Yeah, let's just go through all the possibilities of things that could go wrong 10 days before I go.
Yeah,
let's list that. Let's make a list of them. All right, so.
But let's just put you in a storm in the North Atlantic in the summer, because that happens.
That happens. Okay, so we'll start with storm. Okay, storm could be bad. We could roll the boat. The boat's designed to roll back, but it's not designed to roll back if it fills up with water. A lot of teams, it gets hot out there in the summertime, so you keep the doors open, and then all of a sudden, big waves hit the boat. It rolls over, and both cabins fill with water. Boat's unrecoverable. The boat won't sink, but it will sit right there, kind of right at the water level, and you can't get it any higher because it just can't be done. Anyway, so that's a big problem. We get rescued. A bigger danger would be two fronts come together, so waves are coming from two different directions.
Right.
What happens is it can cause they come to hit the boat at the same time. They lift the boat up, and you can actually what's called do a pitch pole, where you come up and you land instead of on the bow of the boat, you land on the deck. So the boat actually lands on top of you, which is not a good situation because you could get severely injured. The boat landing on top of you. I mean, you go down the water, the boat goes down the water, but still, you could get severely injured. So that's bad. It could be, honestly, it could be like, I nicked my hand on something, on some sort of screw that was sticking out. And we've been really careful about making sure everything's filed down flat. And like, my first boat was nothing like that. It was pointy as hell, but like, but you get a staph infection. We have 2 kinds of antibiotics on board and a doctor on board. But that being said, someone could get really sick. Anyway, so then we could have the water maker break. We have 30 liters of backup water on board. We use as ballast, so we could pour off one of those and drink it, and then fill it back up with seawater to keep our ballast right. But that's really only good. 30 liters is probably good for about, we'll say, 10 days.
Yeah, right.
Then we have a pump that we can make fresh water out of. We haven't actually used it yet.
You're already pumping across the damn ocean.
Right. So, but the problem with that is now someone has to forego their break to pump.
Right.
Or a rower has to forego their rowing.
Do you have a capture method at all? Like a sailboat would take water off the sail.
Well, we have no sails, so not really.
But obviously, no sails. But you don't have any kind of water filtration, like automatic rain kind of capture.
We have a water purifier on board, but if the water purifier breaks, that's what. Right. We have a whole electrical system. Heaven forbid something was wrong there, lose navigation, and John and I are both learning how to use a sextant. So theoretically, we could still get our way to London, and like we have a compass on board. It's not electrical. So like if all electricity went down on the boat, we still have a compass, and so we set a heading. I don't know what this heading would be, probably 62 degrees or something like that. We set a heading, and theoretically, we would hit England. And like we have backup GPS devices on board. They're handheld, which would tell us where we were. So we'd be fine. Like an orca could come and bite off the rudder, or heaven forbid the whole boat. And like we're joking about that, but like we're kind of going right where they are. And that would be a big problem too. Could we still get there? It would be so hard to row and steer at the same time to get over there. We could do it, but it would be such a pain in the ass. Because like right now the auto nav just makes adjustments as we row, so we just row, just worry about our stroke. If the auto nav was no longer working, we'd have to stare at the compass, say 62 degrees, and compensate each stroke to try to keep that point of the boat. That's not a lot of fun. That's terrible. I mean, that's doable, but like miserable. Because you find you're leaning on one oar so much harder than the other. It just really tires you out twice as fast. What are some other things that could really go wrong? Let's see. Someone could just. This is actually one of the biggest problems. Is someone gets seasick and they never not get seasick. Mm-hmm. Like, there's been cases where people get seasick and they are just retching for days. So one of our crew members got seasick when we did our overnight trip, but they pulled it together and were able to row the next day. But the fear is, if you get seasick and you don't stop being seasick, and like that's just no place to be. And this actually gets to become dangerous after about a day because you become super dehydrated. Plus, it's just not healthy just to keep throwing up over and over again. Let's see. I mean, obviously, a boat running into us is bad.
Right.
We have a device on board called the AIS. I can't tell you what that stands for. But essentially, if anything comes within 10 miles, it goes beep, beep, beep. And we can look on the screen, we see another boat, and I could call that boat and just say, hey, we're in the vicinity. We're just a little rowboat. Because more than likely, anything we run into out there it's going to be gigantic. I mean, it's cruise ships and cargo ships, or container ships, whatever you want to call them. Like huge, huge ships. More than likely, we won't run into anything coming at us, but they could come up from behind us. So for most of our trip, we're going to be in the Gulf Stream, and any captain who's got a cargo ship worth his salt is not going to be in the middle of a current going the opposite direction. Just be like triple the gas. You know what happened there. So we're not really worried about stuff running into us, but stuff running us over us, because they'll go 13, 14 knots when we go 3. But that being said, we'd be able to see them because we're looking in the right direction, and they're all lit up. But that, it's no guarantee though.
Right.
That's about it. There's some sea
that
life.
wasn't a short list though. It's
not a mutiny, I guess.
Yeah. How hard is rescue? Like if something happens and look, you're the captain, right? So you have to call it, and you're not going to endanger anybody's lives on purpose. So how long does it take? Because there might be a boat by it, but there might be a day before you see a boat.
I mean, you go back to what was it, 1917 or whatever, when Titanic sunk. I mean, when did the Titanic sink? Whenever it sunk. We'll say the early 1912. Was it 1912? Okay. Yeah. Right. That's close. So go back to 1912. What did they have to wait? 6 hours for the Carpathian?
Yeah. And they could have been rescued faster than that.
Yeah, it could have been. There was another boat in there that just didn't respond.
The radio comms and all that. Yeah.
So that was back then. The traffic now is 1,000-fold.
Wow.
And if anything, there's probably somebody within 50 miles of us at any given time. But we're talking about.
Do you have radio comms?
We have several different kinds of radio comms. We have just telephones we could use. Just use WhatsApp. But we do have a shortwave as well. We have 2 shortwaves on board. I predict it would be no more than a couple hours, because it's a pretty heavy traffic zone, and boats would respond. I mean, they're required to by maritime law, but why not? Why wouldn't you respond? It's a short turn out of your way to pick up 4 people. I mean, most of these boats we're talking about are gigantic. They have room to spare, and the sad part would be we're leaving everything behind. And the boat just goes on and has so much distance from then on, But so that I don't predict we'd be in the water more than half a day at best.
Right.
I mean, that would be like a stretch for me. Like I said, we have numerous ways to contact, probably 6 different ways to contact a passing ship. So I don't think it would take very long.
We've had a lot of people who've solo sailed around the world. One of them, his name is Randall Reeves. He left from San Francisco. I'm going to try to draw this from your guys' perspective. Goes down San Francisco all the way around Tierra del Fuego, and then around Antarctica, and then up the east coast of the American continents, and then back over the top of Canada, back to San Francisco by himself. And when you hear about these guys are going to the polar oceans, right? And so there's different kinds of weather there and everything. I like to ask them, how many times did you almost die? And they're like, oh my God. They almost kind of laugh, because people have to understand, there's a mitigated risk, right? And then there's the level you get above that where you're managing inevitable risk. And that's where these guys end up. I don't imagine you guys are going to be there, but Ronnie Simpson is another guy who was on a race of a solo sail around the ocean. And I think he got demasted. He had to get rescued. And in this case, when they rescued, he's got this, it's a global level solo sailing ship. So it's not inexpensive. And they had to abandon that thing because it's a tanker or whatever. They're not set up to haul up Ronnie's boat and put it on a cradle. And so, and these are world-class sailors, right? So anything can happen. And obviously I'm positive you guys are going to have a great time and you're going to make it on time, probably ahead of schedule. But it is how much does this responsibility sit with you day to day when you think about? I mean, you can't obsess on it, but you also have to think through. Look, you legitimately have to think through scenarios. If this happens, that you have multiple communication plans because you're like, if this radio fails, then we have that radio, then we have the phone. All of these things, you've got to think through it.
So I have about 6 redundant systems to what's next thing coming.
Right.
When we did our original row across, we had 2. No, let me think about that. We had 3.
Yeah.
Not really though. Really just 2. So we had a satellite phone which we could call, and then we had and I think it was on batteries. So I'm not even sure they had backup batteries for it. And then we had an EPIRB. An EPIRB is like an automated, like naval distress device. We have an EPIRB, and we have our cell phones, which would in effect our satellite phones. So we have a satellite dish. We also have a thing called a YB, which is like for races and stuff. It's like a tracking device that goes across, shows you where you are, and moves a little dot. But we can also do text over this. So we have the YB. We have a Garmin, which is essentially the same thing as a YB, except it doesn't create a map. That's a whole other thing. But you can also text over the Garmin. We have personal EPIRBs. It's called PPIRB with AIS. So if we follow the boat, it won't just say this area somewhere in 200 square miles is his body.
Yeah,
he's right there. So much more exact GPS. So we have those, and then we have obviously our shortwave radio, flares. We have
a lot of things.
There's quite a bit of stuff. I'm leaving something out, I'm sure. There's probably 1 or 2 things that I'm not even thinking about right now.
This thing. Hello! You need one of those.
That's only good for about 100 feet. So,
yeah. Just everybody who's interested, Bryan's link is down below. It's in the comments and the remarks. It's londoncallingrow.com. That's where you go to support these guys in this amazing adventure that they're about to go on. These guys leave on the 1st of June. So if you're watching in 2024, hey, this is what you do. And how do folks track you guys? Do they just sign up for the newsletter? Or what's the best way to go, oh my gosh, look at Bryan and everybody?
Just go on our website. I believe the homepage. Come June 1st, we'll have a map. And you'll see a little dot on the map going across. We're hopefully going to be able to upload videos to that same page. I'd like to do a lot of videos, but Elon Musk just can't be rich enough. So he wants a little more money from us. So I don't have a whole lot left. So so we're going to upload what we can. You'll be able to, like I said, just go to our website, londoncallingrow.com, and you'll be able to see it moving across the map.
And will you be able to communicate live while you're out there?
We will be doing live communications out there. Once again, that's going to be like a little bit based on like weather conditions. So we have a satellite dish, and like the smoother it is, the more data.
Better the signal is going to be. Yeah. Right.
If it's super rocky, maybe like we get a message out, but maybe not. Or just kind of sits there and waits and stuff. It kind of goes real slow, but eventually gets out.
Yeah. Hey, we've covered almost everything that I'm interested in doing, and there's so much more we could talk about. But what do you want to make sure you say to everybody before we wrap this up?
This is totally possible. Like, I really encourage someone who's inspired by us to say, what's the thing we could do or I could do? Go to the North Pole, go to Antarctica, climb one of the great mountains of the world. All this stuff is totally possible, and it just takes will and courage to do it. I think everybody should try to do something in life that's just a little bit scary. but also something that's pretty amazing.
I love it. All right, let me roll the credits. I'll come right back to you.
Hey, thanks for watching the show. I really appreciate it. Right here, you can subscribe. Please do that. It makes the show grow. Hit that notification bell so you know which incredible guest is coming up next. Down below is the PayPal link. You can put a small subscription in. That is an enormous help. All that money goes right back into the show. And then right up over here are the next episodes you should listen to, curated by yours truly. Thank you so much